The New England Patriots have spent a lot of money so far this offseason, but how will that affect their approach to the 2025 NFL Draft? My name's Tyler, here with my brother Ryan, and we've got another 3-round mock draft for you here for the Patriots. But before we do that, do all the YouTube stuff, subscribe, like, tackle the bell. And Ryan, let's get into this here. Your Patriots are picking 4th overall and have a heavy dose of defensive moves that have been made so
Yeah.
far. I'm looking at it right now. Clavin Chasen, Harold Landry, Milton Williams, Kyrus Tunga, Robert Spillane, Carlton Davis, even just signed Marcus Epps. I
Yeah.
think it was yesterday before this recording, or we're doing this Saturday night. So a lot of
Yeah.
defensive moves, a couple of offensive moves that are pretty big, like Josh Dobbs signing. That's huge for your quarterback room. I'm just joking. But Ryan, I
Actually, I
want to
do
throw
like
it.
that signing, but
I like it too. It's obvious. I mean, just to get a veteran quarterback in there. I do think Joe
yeah.
Milton is not going to be with the Patriots team much longer. I think people are going to be scouting him, to be
Yeah.
fair. And so getting a veteran guy. That's besides the point, though. Ryan, we did our 3-round mock draft. We had Tet McMillan going to the New England Patriots here at 4th overall. What are your thoughts on that selection?
Yeah, so Tet McMillan, I think I is he the best wide receiver prospect we've ever seen? No. Like, I don't think he's in that Marvin Harrison Jr., Malik Neighbors category that we saw last year, but I think he would have been in that tier 2 of wide receivers in last year's draft. And I have changed my tune a little bit on that, kind of going back and watching him. The fluidity and just the ball skills overall, I think are really impressive for a guy that's 6'5", 215 pounds. But I think also too the fit here and just what the Patriots need. You go look, Jalen Polk, Javon Baker, Demario Douglas, Kayshon Boutte, all those guys are 6 foot and under. They don't really have like a true outside X presence on in that wide receiver room, and I think Tet McMillan can do that. I know they have Matt Collins now, but he's more of the veteran in the room. So I do think that this is like a really realistic possibility. The other thing, so you can see in the potential options, we have Armand Mimbu. I think that's a realistic one, maybe a little bit less so now that Morgan Moses is there. But the other one that I feel like is a possibility, and I have mixed feelings about it because I really like the player. It's just the measurements and everything that came in at the combine were so bad. And I do think Patriots fans need to prepare themselves for Will Campbell to be the pick here at number 4. I just think realistically, you look at the type of person that they brought in free agency, high character guys. Will Campbell is exactly that, if not the highest of character guys in this draft class. And that to me is what really separates him as a prospect. And that offensive line right now, with the release of David Andrews, I really think that they would potentially draft a Will Campbell, even though he is projected to play more inside, uh, just because of his high character and the mentality and everything that he would bring for that offensive line. And so I do think that that is much more of a possibility now after free agency than I did before.
Well, and I will say too, just in that, it maybe just the way I took it, but it made it. You made it seem like it's a bad thing if they end up
It's
getting
not
Will
a
Campbell.
It's not a bad thing. I just don't necessarily feel like it totally fills a need. I would prefer the Tet McMillan route, but I just think it, and also too, part of the reason why I say that is Patriots media is very low on Will Campbell just because he's not a true left tackle. And so like there are a lot of issues there. And so I do think that it's a tough projection for him in the NFL. I don't know how I truly feel about him being Drake May's true blindside protector, just with some of the measurements that we saw at the combine. And
Hmm.
statistically, like there have been like 65 tackles that have measured in with similar arm length and wingspan, and only one has ever actually even played tackle. And then it was at a mediocre level at best. And so I feel like that is kind of more the point. I don't necessarily know if it would be a bad thing because I think character wise, a he has a great character mentality and everything. Just skill set wise, I just don't know if it best fits their needs at the moment.
Yeah, no, and that's and to that point, that's why I think Ted McMillan is probably the most uh, high percentage chance of player being
Yeah.
selected at this pick, just with based off the moves you guys have made. I mean, you guys got Matt Collins, great, but I mean, he's a veteran leadership presence at best. You and so I think
Yeah.
Ted McMillan comes in there, could be a real chance to be the number one. So let's move on now to y'all's second pick in the 2025 draft, and this is one Aireontae Ersery as well. You want to talk about just beefing up that offensive line, a true left tackle that you guys can go and get. I think it's possible y'all might even trade up a couple spots to get him here. He's going to be ranging in, like, I would say, like the 24th, 25th overall range. To I would say I don't think he's getting past New England here.
No.
If he's available, it's depending on how you guys address the offensive line. But he's a guy you've really liked this entire offseason. Tested really well. He's had a good Senior Bowl, a good combine. I think he's maybe a little stiff. He seems like he's just not as athletically fluid as someone as like Josh Simmons, so to say. But Simmons is coming off a leg injury. So, but that being said, though, dude is just a massive human being, and I think he could develop into a really good left tackle.
Yeah, and not to I have no idea character-wise on Aireontae Ersery, but, like, kind of a little bit going off of the Will Campbell, uh, soliloquy that I just laid down there, I think Aireontae Ersery is kind of the opposite. Will Campbell has a mentality, he has all the mental attributes that you want, he's a very high IQ football player. Aireontae Ersery, he might have that, I don't know. It's probably not to the level of Will Campbell, but with that being said, Aireontae Ersery has all the measurables, all of the physical things that you want. He just he's a little stiff in the hips. He's a little cumbersome. He has 330-pound tackle problems where it can be a little heavy on the feet sometimes, but has great length. He's one of the best run blocking tackles in the draft, and he's a really good athlete for his size. Just with the asterisks there for his size. So
Yeah.
I like that pick there as well. Immediately fills a need. Moving on now to the 69th pick. This is actually where we went with Xavier Watts, the safety from Notre Dame. This would be a really good fit. He's a bit of a ball hawking safety. I think he can be that rangy, over the top type of guy where you have Duggar and Jabril Peppers kind of playing more down the by the line of scrimmage. He can be the over the top guy, and I think really complement that room well. This is probably what they're hoping Marcus Epps can be, but that's a 1-year deal on a small
Yeah.
contract, and I think he could come in and fill that need. And you have now Gonzo and Carlton Davis, and that's shaping up to look to be one of the better secondaries in the NFL.
Well, and that's what I'm just gonna say is like you get Marcus Epps, for his veteran presence there, and he's cheap. I think it's $4.5 million, and if he can come in and just be a solid free safety, that'd be great. But then at the same time, though, too, not stopping you from getting a guy like Xavier Watts or maybe even
Yeah.
Makuba.
Yeah,
What's
Andrew
his name?
Makuba.
Andrew Makuba. I want to say Alfred. I'm like, that's not right. And so,
Alfred
but
Collins is the defensive tackle.
exactly, yeah. So, I think that is not going to hold them back at all, to addressing that free safety spot, especially too with what you're saying with how that room is already coming together. The
Yeah.
secondary room is coming together now after the first round of free agency. So, but I like that pick there a lot. This could be where if they don't want to, if they, as we mentioned, different routes of where they could go with their first overall pick with receiver. This could be a spot where they get guys like Tay Felton, Savion Williams was taken not too far ahead from them, or even Jack
Yeah.
Bash as well. There's even some other guys like Jalen Knoll and even like Jalen Royals were still on the board here at this point. So I think receiver could be a spot that they could go if they end up waiting here as well.
Yeah.
But moving on now to their next pick. Speaking of waiting, since they didn't end up going with Will Campbell, who's probably going to kick in the guard, we ended up going with Tate Ratledge as well. This is dressed that interior spot here. He was the right guard at
Yeah.
Georgia his entire yes. And so the right guard at Georgia. Ryan, what do you like that Tate Ratledge can bring to this team here?
He brings a lot of that physicality and that strong mentality that Will Campbell does. He's just a true guard, and I think that's kind of why he falls here. But he's one of the best interior offensive linemen in this class. After we did this mock draft before David Andrews was released. So if you don't like the Tate Ratledge pick, you can insert Jared Wilson, the center from Georgia here. I believe he was still on the board at this point. It's just at the time they had David Andrews, so I figured we would just go with Tate Ratledge. So
Yeah.
I like this pick. Brings that physicality and that mentality I think that you want in offensive lineman, and I think he could easily switch over to left guard. That transition from right to left is not as nearly as hard as it is at for guards as it is tackles. So I think he could easily make that transition. You already have a few guys there to kind of go in and compete, and I think too, just kind of the overall synopsis for this Patriots offseason. we just want guys to come in and compete. And I think that'll help drive the talent on this team higher because you look, Tet McMillan, it would clearly be the number one wide receiver, but that allows, I think, guys two through five to go and really compete for the remaining targets. And then that offensive line, you have some bodies there already. You bring in some more guys to compete for the left tackle spot, left guard, center. And then that's how that offensive line drastically improves. And defensively, I think a lot of the moves were made in the free agency. They still have a lot of money to spend. So if they don't spend it now, I guess they'll just keep carrying over year to year. But I think that they've definitely made a lot of moves to really go and improve this team. And if they can start the draft off like this, I would be really happy with it.
Yeah. No, and I think that's where you guys are just looking at the roster from last year, and you guys have some star players, but you have a very low floor when it comes to overall talent on the
Yeah.
team. So I think just addressing some needs, which you guys have already gotten, especially on the defensive side of the ball. Mike Vrabel's getting his guys in there, and then just finding guys who are like like this guy's at minimum just going to be a good football player. Even if he ends up being just a role player backup guy, but guys that can come in and help out a lot. And I think that's what you guys are really going to be looking forward to. And I guess you could say all teams kind of maybe have that mentality, but for you all, I could see it being like, no, we just want to raise the floor in our receiving room. We want to raise the floor in our offensive line, raise the floor in our defensive line. You guys have already
Yeah.
raised the floor in your secondary as well through free agency. So I think it's going to be a good draft for you all, and 2025 could be very interesting.
Yeah, that is, and this is the last thing I'll say, but with bringing in the coaches that they did, you have Rabel, McDaniels, Terrell Williams. I think those guys are going to be able to do a much better job than Gerard Mayo and his coaching staff were able to do of one, getting the best out of the players, but then also just being clear with guys. Like you don't have a superstar on the offensive side of the ball, and like Drake May is, you hope to be that, but he's not quite that yet. And so, like on the offensive line in that wide receiver room, everybody will have their specific role. And I feel like these coaches are going to do a very good job of like on X play, all I want you to do is this, nothing more,
Mhm.
nothing less. And I think that'll help this team out a ton as well. So, with that being said, let's go ahead. Let's wrap up this video here. If you guys have not already, please go ahead and like and subscribe. That is the best way to help out the channel. While you're down there, leave a comment on what you thought of this Patriots 3-round mock draft. Did you love it? Did you hate it? What would you have done differently? And that we'll see you guys next time.